please welcome Congressman Stephen Horsford.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Congressman Stephen Horsford from Nevada's 4th Congressional District. I'm honored to serve as chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus and to join with all of you and the Vice President today for this kickoff of our Economic Opportunities Tour. I'm delighted to be joined today by 3 phenomenal panelists: Janice Bowdler from the Department of Treasury, Counselor for Racial Equity; Christopher Coles, Department of Transportation, Undersecretary of Transportation for Policy; and Eric Morissette from the Department of Commerce, Undersecretary of Commerce for Minority Business Development Administration. Please welcome our first panel. Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're really excited to be here. This is the kickoff to really have a conversation with the American people about the ways that we together can build economic opportunity, prosperity, and wealth that is inclusive, that is about bringing everyone into full economic participation, and to make sure that as we have passed some of the most historic legislation in our country's history, that those investments reach the communities that need it the most. So again, I'm Congressman Stephen Horsford, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. We have been working with the Vice President as well as the Biden-Harris administration to center the people in the policy that we are working to advance. And that is what today is all about. I'm honored to join forces with the Vice President for the kickoff here and to join all of you. And this builds on the work that the members of the Congressional Black Caucus have been advancing throughout this Congress. Today, the Congressional Black Caucus has the largest membership in our history, 60 members. We went from 13 when we were founded, and 1 black woman and Shirley Chisholm, to having 60 members, 31 black women, representing every region of the country. Recently, we introduced a plan to build black wealth that is endorsed and sponsored by 100% of the CBC members. And today, this economic tour will allow us to continue to advance that discussion, to close the racial wealth gap, to build economic opportunity, and to address the inequities that we have seen at a time when there are forces who are trying to take away those tools of opportunity. And I want to thank organizations including the Black Economic Alliance, the U.S. Black Chamber, among others, who have worked with us to ground this work. So today, we're going to have a conversation about the resources that are available from the historic legislation that has been passed. And I want to start with Undersecretary Coles. The Vice President is here in Atlanta, in part to highlight the Biden-Harris administration's efforts in making investments in communities that have historically been left out and left behind. So talk to us about how the Department of Transportation is working on those issues, including with the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods program.
Congressman Horsford, first, I want to just take this moment to acknowledge you and your leadership as the chair of the CBC. We are here because of your great leadership, so I want to first acknowledge that. As a native of Thomasville, Georgia, I can tell you what it means when you hear a statement of living on the other side of the railroad tracks. And too many communities across the country has seen what infrastructure would not align with community voices, with community aspirations, can do to the communities. And that is no different from a community here in Atlanta, where the I-75-85, known as the Downtown Connector, came into what was known as the Sweet Buttermilk Biscuit District, also Sweet Auburn Avenue, and destroyed 13,000 homes and businesses. Now, that legacy right, still is seen today and experienced today. But through the bipartisan infrastructure law passed by President Biden and Vice President Harris, we have now been able to create what is called the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods program, which is a $3 billion initiative to actually right the wrongs that came from these investments. And just this week, we were so excited to announce that we were giving $150 million to fund the Stitch project. Now, this is just one step of repairing the harm, but what we also are excited about that we're supporting 3,000 new affordable housing projects, 13,000 construction jobs, and a new apprenticeship to allow Atlantans, those natives, to actually come back, not only start new businesses, but actually have a place to stay. That is an example of how the bipartisan law, under the leadership of President Biden and Vice President Harris, is trying to right the wrongs of the past.
So Undersecretary Coase, you just mentioned the investments and what they mean around housing, reconnecting communities that have been discriminated against based on past discrimination and policies, and the fact that it's also about job creation and small business opportunities as well. So Undersecretary Morissette, the Vice President just met with business owners that have worked with the Urban League of Greater Atlanta to grow their business. Tell us about the new Capital Readiness Program that you are leading, and what it is and how people in this room can benefit directly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. Thank you so much for leading this panel. I can't help but mention our partner in the Capital Readiness Program, which is the Department of Treasury, which is sitting right, and their team sitting right in front of us. The Capital Readiness Program is a part of the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which is opening up $10 billion to communities around the country. And as you noted, the Urban League is helping to lead that effort here in Metro Atlanta. But we also have the U.S. Black Chamber. I see Ron Busby back there with the U.S. Black Chamber helping to lead that effort. We have 43 partners around the country through the Capital Readiness Program that are helping folks access that $10 billion in state small business credit initiative funding, but they're also helping communities around the country access all sorts of capital throughout this country. The idea that small minority business entrepreneurs have a hard time accessing capital is something that this administration has taken to heart and has done something about. They've done something about that through the Capital Readiness Program, but they did something about that in authorizing the Minority Business Development Agency. We talk about the infrastructure law. MBDA, my agency, has been around for 55 years, but we're 3 years old as an authorized agency. 55, we were founded under the Nixon administration, but this administration, I keep telling folks, we're 55 years old, but 3 years young. Yeah, thank you. The MBDA has at its core, and I have the best job, I think, on this panel, to create wealth in communities of color around this country. And that's something different. Creating wealth, the ability for folks to pull themselves up, create a new life for themselves and their families and their communities. We're not giving out anything to anyone. We're helping people who are exceedingly and abundantly able to help themselves, but for an opportunity. The Capital Readiness Program is a part of that opportunity, giving folks the tools that they need to create change for themselves and their communities. So that's why I'm so proud of this administration and this line of work and that partnership with the Department of Treasury.
Now, you kind of stepped on the lead when you said it was just 3 years fully authorized. What was it before? Why is it important for it to be authorized? And what does that provide as far as permanent funding to not just help businesses start, but to actually grow and thrive, which is one of the initiatives from this Economic Opportunities Tour today?
Absolutely. So being a permanently authorized agency is something different. We were around for 55 years, founded under the Nixon administration, but it took a bipartisan coalition of Congress to pass this agency and make it a fully authorized federal agency, thanks to the leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus, a number of other leaders in Congress. But they didn't look the same. They looked like the tapestry of this country, and they realized we were born as an authorized agency in the aftermath of the pandemic. And we know acutely that the pandemic hit communities like ours differently. they hit those communities differently, those socially and economically disadvantaged communities differently. Our agency, as an authorized agency in partnership with Treasury through this capital readiness program, has at our core the ability to reach across the entire federal government and lift up our communities, leveraging not only our capital, but the capital of our partner agencies, leveraging the authorities that this administration has lifted up through their executive orders, but also through the meaningful and intentionality of changing the way we are doing business inside of agencies. I think about this in the context of the Department of Commerce. We as an agencies have worked to have over 125 billion of above base funding. We talk about the CHIPS Act, we talked about the Broadband Act that's trying to get this entire country plugged in. And MBDA, a new federal agency's ability to reach inside of those above base program areas and ensure that communities that look like ours, that socially and economically disadvantaged communities, have a part of this investment. That's something real. You ask about what this administration is doing and how it's doing things differently. We're putting our money where our values are, and that's something meaningful.
So we've heard a lot about, the 16 million new small businesses that have been started since the beginning of this Biden-Harris administration, the historic legislation that really is providing investments and to make sure that our communities, every community that has been underserved or disadvantaged historically, are not left out or left behind, and to make sure that we're connecting those businesses, those owners, with the opportunities. And these are just 3 of the federal agencies that oversee the federal procurement process. And so in addition to all of the booths that are here and the information that will be shared both during and following this Economic Opportunities Tour, this is ways that we're reaching directly into the community to make sure we have this conversation. Councilor Bowdler from Treasury, when the vice president was a senator, she fought for and secured $12 billion for community development financial institutions and minority development depository institutions across our nation. The Biden-Harris administration has been able to administer that funding and give it out directly to local CDFIs and MDIs, some of whom are here today. Can you talk to us about how you work with CDFIs and MDIs to advance specifically racial equity and what that means for the people here in Atlanta?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Congressman Horsford, thank you so much for your championship as well of CDFIs and MDIs. And for those who don't know what that means, we're really talking about mission community-oriented lenders. CDFIs, community development financial institutions, have a mission and a special certification to serve low-income families, low-income neighborhoods, and communities that have long been overlooked and under-resourced when it comes to credit. MDIs are minority depository institutions, Black-owned banks, Latino-owned banks, Asian, Native-owned banks. And we have been super fortunate, Senator, when she was a Senator, Harris, now VP Harris, and the Congressional Black Caucus, among other leaders, have really championed getting resources into institutions that we know are proximate to the communities we're trying to serve. And that is incredibly important that we're investing in those CDFIs and MDIs that are delivering capital in culturally competent ways, that have the relationships with the community, have the presence in the ground. So the signature initiative here, the Emergency Capital Investment Program, was $8.5 billion to 175 CDFIs. Of that, $1.4 billion went to Black-owned and Black majority shareholder institutions. And we estimate that over the course of this program, over the next 10 years, that's going to be $80 billion to Black communities flowing through this program. Okay, but you asked me, what does this mean for Atlanta? Because we throw around these big numbers, so I want to make sure that I'm bringing it home. Georgia CDFIs received $125 million, and 2 of them are Black-owned or Black majority shareholder institutions, and they're here. Hopefully you got to see them. And Cynthia and Robert, I can't see you because the lights are in my face, but Citizens Trust Bank and Carver State Bank are both here. They are recipients and participants in the ESIP program, and their resources are outside. There's also another $35 million in grants to CDFIs that are serving Georgia Avenue, including ACE, which is a local small business lender that some of you in this room might know. And it matters. Let me just give you one example. Because of some of the investments that Carver State Bank received, they were able to provide financing for MedCure, which is a local federally qualified health clinic and healthcare provider here in the greater Atlanta region. Because of the $6 million in financing they received, they're opening up and expanding a new location. That clinic is expected to see 5,000 new patients a year, 90% of which are people of color and 75% of which are low-income families that might not otherwise have gotten access to healthcare or have to travel really far to get quality care. So when we invest in proximate institutions, that means that our businesses, our community assets like healthcare centers and childcare centers are getting the resources that they need. They're also hiring people along the way and creating stable jobs in their communities.
You know, there are a lot of people who question why we need these programs. Why do we need to invest in certain communities that have historically been underserved? And I just want to share that the disparity in wealth is stark, with a significant gap between Black and white per capita wealth. In fact, today, the typical white per capita wealth of white Americans is $284,310, compared to a mere $44,100 for Black Americans. So the agenda around economic prosperity and wealth, this Economic Opportunities Tour and the resources that you all are administering to get to the communities are intended to help close and narrow this racial wealth gap that has persisted. And under the Biden-Harris administration, this has been a center of their agenda across the whole of government. So what resources are available from the federal government to help someone turn their awesome ideas, which we've got a lot of people here with great ideas, great passion, great products, they want to become the creators of wealth, not just the consumers of it. What would you recommend that they do from the standpoint of your programs that you administer within your agency to connect their ideas to the programs that are available through the federal government?
I'll go first. Well, thank you so much for the question. And I'd ask you to, for some of you in this room, go outside. I have tables of the 5 equities that we have at the Minority Business Development Agency. We have a business center here that's outstanding through Georgia Tech. They are doing innovative and novel things, but more importantly, they're trying to connect with you. They're trying to connect with all those who have an interesting idea that they want to get off the ground at any phase of development. We also have the relationship that I mentioned before with the Urban League and the U.S. Black Chamber. We also have a relationship with the MSIs, minority serving institutions around the Metro Atlanta area. The truth is we have equities around the country, 131 equities around this country. Please, mbda.gov. If you have an idea that you're trying to launch, or if you're trying to create a business, formalize your business, connect with our business centers. But if you're a member of other other groups that are affiliated with MBDA, if you're a member of a Greek organization, we just signed an MOU with the Divine Nine. I'd ask for you to connect with them. We have lasting, we have new and developing MOUs across both federal government and the private sector and affinity groups. If you think that we can be of any value to you, or if you have an idea that just needs to get incubated and developed, come to us, come to me, reach out, and we're happy to work with you and help that idea blossom.
Yeah, I want to put a fine point on why this is so important and how much we're working together right now. Christopher here is in charge of one of the largest public investments that we're going to see in our generation, the bipartisan infrastructure law. In Eric's agency, they're leading the CHIPS and Science Act. And in my agency, we have the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, practically, that's happening all over federal agencies. But what you have up here on stage represents once in a generation suite of investments that are not only going to transform our economy, but let's be real about what we're talking about. We are in the middle of building the next middle class. These investments that we're talking about are not only onshoring our manufacturing supply and improving our national security, improving our infrastructure, improving our climate resiliency, they are creating job opportunities and contracting opportunities that have the ability to take our communities that have not just been under-resourced, but frankly underestimated, and create a set of opportunities. And now we didn't just say like, okay, go build some manufacturing plants and go build some bridges. We also put the financing out there for businesses to be able to get those contracts and the technical assistance and resources. The Capital Readiness Program is strategic to help businesses really seize these opportunities. Similarly, through your state here, the state of Georgia, there are more technical assistance opportunities with many of the partners that have already been named with the financial institutions that I talked about. What I want to make clear is that whether you are trying to take your side hustle and turn it into your full-time job, or you're looking for an equity investment to scale your tech company, we are putting the financing and resources out there, and we're doing it through proximate partners that understand Black and brown communities, that understand how to invest in our companies and help scale those enterprises. It's because we're going to be able to get these contracts that I think we're in the best position we've ever been to completely transform Black and brown wealth in this country. And let me say, that is good for everybody, because on behalf of the Treasury Department, I can tell you, it's the right thing to do, but it is also the economically smart thing to do. Right now, we are leaving money on the table when we leave our communities on the economic sidelines. When we get our communities off the economic sidelines, we're generating more wealth, more jobs, and more revenue that is good for everyone. An investment in our Black and brown communities is an investment in America.
Christopher?
I would say we can stop there. There's an amen and all of that. The thing I would just add, as Janice mentioned, we at the Department of Transportation do not take it lightly that we have half of the $1.2 trillion of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And the fact that we have to look at, in a sense, this is not just about building roads and bridges. This is literally rebuilding America, and for all Americans, and particularly those that have been left behind and disinvested, and that is the Black and brown communities, as well as rural communities. As someone who comes from a rural South, I can tell you right now, our main focus is to eliminate and reduce barriers to access to capital. So right now, as mentioned by my colleagues, we have a booth manned by our Office of Small and Disadvantaged Utilization, where they have now launched this past week a new access to capital portal, which will allow entrepreneurs, small businesses to directly connect, interview, solicit, and secure private equity to scale your businesses. That is at the table right now. So that's going to open up billions of dollars. I can tell you, in addition to helping eliminate, it's also allowing the Department of Transportation to put our money where our mouth is. So when we came in on day one, we had a procurement of DBEs and minority contracting, women contracting set at roughly about 17 to 18%. Our secretary said that's not good enough. In 1 year, we said we're going to go from 18 to 20%. We exceeded that. That goes to Janet's point, is that there is amazing businesses who are ready to take on the work. The other piece here, one of the things I'm really excited about, especially being here in Atlanta, in addition to announcing the dollars that we did to the Stitch, having a working partnership with the Atlanta Beltline, who also received a $15 million grant for the Flint Trail segment. What is really fascinating about that element is that Clyde and Anna Roach with the ARC are finding ways to break up the contract so that local businesses can take advantage of that opportunity, particularly in places like East Point and Clayton County that hasn't seen a federal grant ever. And I can tell you, at a larger level, we are looking at how do we make sure these investments, these grant dollars, are not just catalyzing in Black and brown communities, but we're also making sure that they're transforming. And the last thing I'll say here is that we are in Atlanta. Atlanta is the poster child of what it means if you get good infrastructure, how it can help create the Black middle class. And that is right here at the airport. And the importance of our DBE, our Disadvantaged Enterprise and Airport Concession Program. We know how it has helped Atlanta. But here's the thing. We just this past week announced that we need to make changes to the DBE program because we've heard all of you, that the current rules actually graduated businesses before they can get to scale. So that's why we made changes. We are now allowing DBEs to have a larger or bigger personal wealth so they can actually stay in the program longer. We're also allowing you to use your certification as a regional, so you're not going to each state to try to get certification. In addition to that, we are forcing more prompt payments, because it's one thing to say we want you on these contracts, but we need to make sure you get your money so you can also pay your own employees to invest in your own communities. So these are just some of the examples that we are taking at Department of Transportation to ensure that these dollars truly build back our communities for everyone.
You guys get real excited about talking about all of these great opportunities that are available, and this is exciting information, and it's why we wanted to be able to have this direct conversation led by the Vice President, kicked off here in Atlanta. This is part of a national tour around economic opportunities for all and making sure that that freedom that we're fighting for economic justice, parity, is available to everyone within the federal government as well as in the private sector. So as time comes to an end, I would like to ask for you to talk about, for anyone who is here who wants to know how they can see themselves in the Biden-Harris administration's historic efforts in infrastructure, around small business support, and in financing. How should they connect in order for their ideas to be fulfilled based on the opportunities that each of you have talked about? Janice, we'll start with you.
Sure. Well, first of all, since I know this is the last time I'll have the mic on this, let me just say thank you to a lot of people in this room, because up here we can build a really good mousetrap. But if we don't have the partners, like the people that are in the room that are going to help get the word out, who are going to make the connections with communities, then our stuff can fall really flat. Which brings me to how people should see themselves in this administration. Please see them through our partners and who we align ourselves with. Again, for us, our booth out there is Carver State Bank and Citizens Trust Bank. Please stop by and see them. Also, come see Treasury and learn about tax credits. I didn't have a chance to talk about that on this panel, but who we are partnering with should tell you everything about the intentionality we're bringing to make sure we get to communities that haven't always felt like the federal government has been on their side, because it hasn't. And we are doing everything we can to change that.
Three ways you can see yourself. Number one, go see Tara Ruffus, who's head of our Austinville office. She will connect you, literally make you sign and create a profile where you have immediate access to lenders and equity partners who want to invest in your business. That's number one. Number two, if you want a contract, go to sam.gov, register, and there you'll see the hundreds and thousands of contracts that are coming through the Department of Transportation as well as our sister agencies. And number three, if you are working with a local government and you say, look, my streets are not paved, I need more transit access, but you know what? I have a great technical assistance program to train young Black men who are formerly incarcerated. Well, guess what? We have programs for that. So all you have to do is go to the Department of Transportation's website, transportation.gov, go to our DOT Navigator, and we will show you how to put together an application to get resources to your communities. And I can tell you, one of the things that we have to do as administration, we have a Justice 40 initiative to make sure 40% of our investments are going to disadvantaged communities. Already in FY22 and FY23, the Department of Transportation has went from 60 to 62% on average of our investments going out that have workforce and entrepreneurial opportunities. So again, those are the three places I would say you should go and see yourselves in it.
It's outstanding. I'd reiterate some of the things that I've highlighted before, but acutely for those folks here in Atlanta, we've got 5 equities here. We've got our enterprising women of color here. We've got our connection to MSIs, minority serving institutions here. We've got 2 CRP award grantees that are working to connect people to capital access opportunities here in Atlanta. And we also have our business center. But beyond that, we have procurement centers that are helping people access procurement opportunities within the federal government and outside of federal government. We have our manufacturing specialty centers for those people who are interested in accessing manufacturing opportunities. And also look inside of yourself for how you are affiliated with different organizations that might be connected to us. We've got a whole line of equities that are connected to this country, but more importantly, we are here to work for you. I say this and I said it before and I'll say it again. I have the best job in the federal government. My job is to help communities like ours create wealth. I am here and interested in helping all of you and all of your communities and all the socially and economically disadvantaged communities around this country create something different for themselves. Thank you to the Biden-Harris administration. Thank you to the Congress for passing a law that allows for me to have this amazing job, but more importantly, change the life and trajectory of a whole swath of folks who've been looking for this for a really long time.
Let's give our panel a round of applause. And on behalf of the Congressional Black Caucus, we are honored to work in collaboration with the Biden-Harris administration and the launch of this Economic Opportunity Tour, which focuses on more than just growth. It's also about advocating for total economic participation, particularly for communities that have been left out, left behind, the Black community and other marginalized communities. We deserve a seat at the table, and as the panel has said, when we lift up Black America, we lift up all of America. When we move more people to the middle class and create more small businesses, it helps increase the GDP for all of America. So that's what this Economic Opportunities Tour is all about. Thank you for joining us today. And let's make sure that you get out and connect to the resources available from the Biden-Harris administration.